so insane about it is that this is a pure fabrication. It is a very cynical weaponization. It's not that I'm anti-Semitic. It's that I'm anti-Israel. That is what is terrifying. It's so frustrating, dude. The idea that Bernie Sanders would voluntarily sit for an interview with Hassan Piker, an individual who routinely has used his platform to spread anti-Jewish tropes, amplify propaganda from a designated terrorist group, and promote toxic anti-Zionism, says an awful lot about the senior senator from Vermont and the normalization of anti-Semitism. Oh, if my girlfriend saw that tweet, she would just assume it's true. Okay, let me explain this one more time. I'm saying that Jonathan Greenblatt, who is familiar with my game, okay, does not sincerely believe that I am anti-Semitic. Maybe other people who don't know who I am hear Jonathan Greenblatt say this and think that, but the people that make a big fuss about this sort of thing they do not actually think I'm anti-Semitic. I know for a fact that Jonathan Greenblatt does not think I'm anti-Semitic, okay? He is simply utilizing anti-Semitism allegations in an effort to combat his true fears. Someone who is not anti-Semitic, who is actually saying correct things about Israel. I am, in that respect, a much larger villain for Jonathan Greenblatt than someone who is deeply anti-Semitic but pro-Israel, okay? Between me and the likes of Ann Coulter, who is deeply and unconditionally pro-Israel, while also simultaneously incredibly anti-Semitic, I am a far greater threat. You want to know why? Because his nieces and nephews tune in and listen to me talk about Israel and go, hey, I know this guy's not anti-Semitic, and I think he's making a lot of good points. That is infinitely more terrifying. Do you understand? That's it. That's the real problem here. As a matter of fact, I'll take it one step further. If I was outwardly anti-Semitic and also anti-Israel, I would not present as big as a threat to someone like Jonathan Greenblatt, because you can immediately point out someone like that for being insane. This is why the likes of Dan Bilzerian and even Candace Owens sometimes get a lot more motion in mainstream institutions and mainstream media, because you can so easily just go, well, look at that guy. They're talking about the importance of the importance of like how this is so directly related to Judaism or whatever, and the cabal and the Jewish cabal and the elite pedophiles or whatever the fuck. That's it. For someone like Jonathan Greenblatt, especially because they have a very short-term benefit attitude when it comes down to things like this, someone like myself, or God forbid, even scarier, an outspoken anti-Zionist Jew is significantly more terrifying, okay? That's it. An anti-Zionist Jew or an anti-Zionist who's not Jewish, but certainly goes against anti-Semitism and routinely combats anti-Semitism is absolutely worse than someone who is overtly anti-Semitic and also anti-Israel, okay? 100%. What? Please stop calling her that. You can acknowledge she's a terrible person without using racially charged nicknames. Candace Owens? You're joking, right? You have to be joking. What is happening right now? Quite literally a white nationalist. A black woman who is a white supremacist. What is happening? Okay, you're officially woke of the day. Take a day off. Woke of the day for the chatter. Anyway, let's finish this video.
Generation and the Hamas and their accomplices, and they use what idiots in the West are falling in line to leads that are terrified left, I'll just say.
Like the funniest aspect of this kind of conversation is that, like, they'll say things like, well, they're saying the same things that Hamas is saying. They're saying the same things that Iran is saying, not recognizing that actually, for many people, unironically, legitimizes the perspective. If your goal is to undermine Hamas, or if your goal is to undermine Iran, you cannot actually present their perspective as the valid one in terms of Israel. But instead of trying to separate, if I was to do propaganda, okay, for Israel, which that's what the Apartheid Defense League is there to do, historically at least, you know, in the 90s, they quite literally got into trouble for spying on Jewish anti-apartheid activists and collaborating with the apartheid South African government. Okay, just that's what the ADL was doing. Okay, the apartheid defense league. But if your goal is to solidify the obviously anti-Hamas perspective that is broad in the United States of America, or the anti-Iran perspective is very popular in the United States of America, then you can't hand it to them. You know what I mean? You can't present them as the only people that are saying Israel is doing a genocide to us. Okay? Because the reality of the matter there is, for many people, when they see what's going on, they go, oh my God, this is unlimited bloodshed. This is unlimited brutality happening with our tax dollars. You have to present a reasonable position. This is why I've always maintained the position that like liberal Zionism, to a certain respect, is supposed to give Israel much more bandwidth to be cruel and maintain the apartheid. But people supercharge their attitudes, their anti-Palestinian sentiment, their anti-Arab sentiment, their Islamophobic sentiment in the aftermath of October 7, and forgot that like that is the way you're supposed to do propaganda to the West. Just completely cast that aside. That's why one of the most dangerous weapons. That's why one of the most dangerous weapons against pro-Israeli sentiment and Hasbara is the translate from Hebrew button. Okay, this person has no way of comprehending that for many people like myself, okay, they had at least some understanding. Well, not myself, but like many others had at least some crumb of understanding of the dynamic there with the apartheid. And of course, immediately we're like, this is only happening because of 75 years of occupation, brutal occupation. What do you think is more likely, that people have an accurate assessment of Israeli history and settler colonial violence, or that Hamas and Iran deploy a multi-million-dollar propaganda operation completely without like the American State Department ever figuring it out? This complex multi-million-dollar propaganda operation to brainwash the American public. What do you think is what happened? And also, if that's the case, are Israeli historians like Ilan Pappé or Avi Shalim, are they also operating with Hamas propaganda? And people like Norm Finkelstein, they're all doing Hamas and Iranian propaganda. They're getting paid by Iran and Hamas. It's even funnier to say that they're being paid by Hamas. Like, Iran at least is a nation state in and of itself, but Hamas is a resistance group that was born out of endless occupation and works within the confines of a concentration camp. They have very limited motion outside. Yeah, Noam Chomsky being paid by the Iranian state and Hamas. Gabor Mate, Holocaust survivor, being paid by the Iranian state and Hamas. Or maybe plenty of these scholars, okay, plenty of these academics that have spent their entire life documenting the atrocities have come to this conclusion because they have a moral compass that allows them to see right from wrong and aren't simply invested in the maintenance of an apartheid, settler colonial apartheid. I'm confused by this. Why are they shadowboxing? Ignoring reality won't help them achieve their goals. No, ignoring reality and suppressing any kind of information that counters the Hasbara narratives has been incredibly effective for 76 years. Or, well, at least for like 74, 75.